Welcome to Passion and Profit. If you're a small business owner or solo entrepreneur, this episode is for you. It would not only help you achieve your business goals, but it will also help you enjoy the process. Let's get started.
So if you feel like your wholesale is growing too fast and someone reaches out to you and there might not be the best fit, you can say, we're not taking any new wholesale accounts this month. We'll let you know if something opens up.
Passion and Profit with your host, Delmith Morales, the podcast for makers and manufacturers. If you're a handmade business owner looking to take the next steps to scale your business, this podcast is for you. I'm Delmith, I'm your host, and welcome to Inventora's podcast. I'm really excited to announce that this is our very first episode, and we're going to be talking with an expert and someone that we really enjoy to be working with. She is a soap maker, and if you don't know who am I talking about, her name is caitlinblue. She is the owner of Solette, and she has been in this small business journey since 2018, and she also has a YouTube channel with a lot of educational videos, sharing a lot of important things that honestly we need to know about handling a small business So thank you, Caitlin, for being here. If you have, I really enjoyed to have you here with us. So I'll leave you the time to introduce yourself, talk about your business, and all of those details.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I hope you guys know it's mutual. I absolutely love you and the products that you put out. I've used you guys for a couple of years now, so I'm more than happy to chat with you and your community. And thank you so much for a nice introduction. So let's tell you a little bit more about me, other than what Delmith already said. I used to own a business called Fiorella Soapery. So if you're listening, that is where I have transitioned. This year, I am rebranding to Solette, which has been a completely different experience than what I've ever known before. But I do make and handcraft some of my bar soaps still. I started out doing a handcrafted business. I made cold processed soap. I added quite a few more products and then started doing some wholesale back in 2018 and 19, and then continued to grow my online business. And I am rebranding, going into manufacturing, which is a huge step for a small business, a small handmade business to go that route. It definitely was something that I wasn't sure I wanted to do because I loved being handmade, but really the ultimate reason is because I couldn't keep up with the demand, which I guess is a great problem to have. I simply couldn't make the product myself and keep up with the orders. My wholesale business has really skyrocketed, and I realized I couldn't do it all myself. So I have been able to work with some fabulous partners this year, and I'm so excited about what's coming down the road for Solette and my new brand. But I will always be a handmade maker at heart. I am still making my cold processed bar soaps. They're such a work of art. So I still know what it's like to use your program and use raw materials and get all that stuff out the door. So I just added a different element this year.
I love to hear that. And I love to see new transitions. Like everything can happen in a small business, right? So I love to hear your experience and that you're growing and you need to make improvements and changes besides that, right? So if you're new here, I just want to give you a brief background. Inventora is an all-in-one system, inventory system for makers. So we help you keep track of raw materials, your finished products, your supply orders, and all of those details that help you run your business smoothly. So I know that Caitlin has been using it a lot, and I know that also Inventora and Caitlin, we have a lot of experience with wholesale, and that's why we want to talk about all things wholesale. So I know that Caitlin, you can talk about your experience, and we just want to just get started. So I think the first question is, what was your first experience with wholesale? How did you start?
So before I started wholesaling in my own business, I have a background in corporate retail. So I really understood the foundation of what it was like. I was a buyer. So I was buying for a major chain retailer in the country. So I already knew a lot of the inner workings of that. I just didn't know what it was like from the seller side. I was the buyer in all those situations. So I already knew how that worked. And really my stepping into wholesale with my own handmade business started back in 2018, and it started very local. So I was doing farmers markets. I was doing some of the bigger weekend long markets in my area, which is a great way for a new business to get customer traffic and sales early on. And in that, I met some business owners who owned flower shops, boutiques, clothing stores, things like that, that eventually we started a relationship on Instagram. I would go to their stores and buy stuff. They would buy my product. And eventually it actually evolved into relationships where they wanted to carry my products in their store. So I always tell people, sorry if there's a train going by. It goes by like every 15 minutes. So it should be fast. But I tell people all the time to start local, because building a relationship is the number one way to grow an account with someone versus online. It's so hard to know the person, to talk to them, to be in their store and see what works and what doesn't. And to this day, my local stores that started with me back in 2018 are some of my best retailers across the entire country, simply because we have that relationship. So I would say starting local is the best and easiest. Plus, then you can hand deliver your products to them, which is another face-to-face interaction, which I know, we haven't had the luxury of doing for the last few years, but now I think it's more important than ever to be face-to-face with the retailers that are selling your product.
Absolutely. And I know that right now, online sales are very good for every small business. It's a good way to start. I'm not against that, but there's such a competition there, right? You have a lot of options. So if you're a customer, you're not just gonna, if you find something that you really like, but something else it's cheaper, probably you're gonna be trying one and then move to the cheaper one. So I think it's a struggle, and I honestly believe that contact with direct customers and companies it's so much stronger, and you can create a better relationship. I'm honestly not against online, but it's easier to have a better relationship and keep wholesale going in that direction, right?
I also think too, I talk to a lot of business owners, especially in my industry, with soap, personal care, even candles. There are a lot of people that I think have a dream to open their own brick and mortar store. So that's not really necessarily on my personal radar, but I know a lot of people dream of that. And it's really important, if you have that goal in mind, to start getting your product into a retail store. It's a great testing ground to figure out what works, what doesn't, figure out your packaging. And you're right, you hear customer feedback. It's just really valuable. If you are trying to go that route of opening your own store, you should definitely try and get your products into some kind of store, but whether or not you're ready to do your own.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good way to start if you want to open a business, like for yourself and your business. I think that's good to just test the waters and see if actually you like it as well, or if you just want to stick online, right? And both options are super doable. So I know that you have a lot of experience, and I know that there's a lot of work before starting doing wholesale. So what should we know and do before we start doing wholesale?
I think the biggest thing is your pricing. I think a lot of people get caught up with that, and a lot of people don't do wholesale because they're worried about profit. And when you're just starting out, I totally understand. You're giving away 50% of what you would be taking in to somebody else, and it just doesn't feel right. But I think if you look at how you're going to grow and scale your business over a longer period of time and not look so much at that one specific sale as you start out, you're going to eventually see economies of scale kick in, and you're going to see the profits come. You're going to be able to buy bigger quantities of your raw materials and save money on that. You're going to be able to add new retailers and ultimately just gain more market share simply because you have more people buying your products. So when you're small, I get it. You don't want to give away the profit, but I think a lot of people stay really small. And I'm not saying you have to be this big vendor either, But if you do want to get into wholesale, you need to make sure your pricing still works for you, but you also have to come and meet the retailer a little bit and understand you're not going to make as much profit, but in the long run, you're going to sell a lot more. So you will actually be making more money.
Yeah. And I know that maybe also before starting, because I also have like a little bit of experience in wholesale, there's a lot of research that you have to do, right? Not every retail store is going to be perfect for you to partner with, right? And how did you find the correct clients and wholesale clients for your business?
I think I have a very specific brand. So I looked for stores that fit that. For instance, a flower shop is a great place for me. They tend to sell a few gifts here and there. I have a very floral packaging, so it fits really well into that type of an environment. I really think that if someone is reaching out to you, to go and look at their business and see if it feels like the right fit. Because at the end of the day, you could get a sale from somebody who wants to open your account, but if their customers don't buy your products, they're not going to come back and buy from you again. So you want to pick the accounts that are going to have a long lifespan with you because the customers are going to make sense. So I think most business owners should be able to Google and see the images, check out the store's Instagram page, do a little bit of research to see what they feel like and if it feels like a good fit. Some you're going to be great and others you're going to try and it's not going to work out. Not every wholesale account that I've opened, I've maintained, and that's okay. That's how I learn as well. But I would just say do a little bit of research because you want to make sure that they're investing their money with you to hopefully sell the products really, really well. But you don't want to pick the wrong partner either.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that we know what to do, like the starting point of doing wholesale, what things we should avoid, like when we offer wholesale?
That was the hardest question that you had on the list. I feel like it's such a learning thing. I feel like I would almost say like avoid being fearful because I think a lot of people are so scared to get into this. They're scared they're not going to have enough inventory. They're scared they're not going to be able to keep up with it. And you can control everything. I would say always start small. Do not, cold call 20 people. And, if you open all 20 and you can't fulfill those orders, you shouldn't be reaching out to 20 people. Reach out to a number that makes sense for you. If you're starting out with one wholesale account, that's a great place to start and learn from that and slowly scale. I am not this person that believes in an overnight success. I actually am fearful of like an overnight success because it usually means that someone is not successful down the road. It looks great for like a hot second on social media when someone's video goes viral and they get tons of sales. But to be able to do that on a regular basis, most people can't do that. And then their quality suffers and their communication suffers and people don't come back. So I think starting small and just trying to get your first account and nurture them and take care of them and learn from them, I think that's a great place to start. But I think that if you're fearful of even starting, then that's probably going to keep you really small or keep you in a space that, a lot of people might end up closing their businesses because wholesale to me is a part of it. I think that every business should have a direct-to-consumer piece and a wholesale piece. I think that people that are 100% direct-to-consumer, there are a lot of brands that started as that. Things like big brands like Allbirds and Glossier even, they started as direct-to-consumer brands and they had tons of investors because it was great. And then they didn't have any wholesale partners and they've lost a lot of money over the last few years. So even if you look at those big businesses and what they're doing, they're diversifying their portfolio and doing both wholesale. So Glossier is now in Sephora as well as direct to consumer. That is how companies survive. So I feel like even as a small business, you should be looking at that. So I'm very passionate about trying to have multiple sales channels.
Yeah, I think to have different revenue streams is also a good way to keep up with your business, because if one option is not working, but probably your direct to consumer is working now, and then you don't have any wholesale partner right now, so you can rely in another one and still get some income coming, right?
Yeah, and you control it. So if you feel like your wholesale is growing too fast and someone reaches out to you and there might not be the best fit, you can say, we're not taking any new wholesale accounts this month. We'll let you know if something opens up. You control your business. I think people are so fearful of something happening to them, but there is a lot that you can control as the business owner.
I think it's a challenge because once we start opening that door to wholesale, we want to say yes to everyone and we don't want to miss any opportunity. But honestly, like you said, it's better to go slow. And like the risk, because wholesale is not easy. And mainly if if it's just you making the soaps or your product and handling all the shipping, marketing, and all of that, I think you need time to organize. And I think I have a question. How do you know when you're ready to offer wholesale?
I think you have to have a lot of confidence in your product. There are a lot of people, I think, started making some products during COVID because we all had the downtime. And there's a lot of people that I see that are really quick to jump into wholesale. But you're sitting on a shelf with a lot of other brands and you want to make sure that your packaging is perfect, that your product isn't going to be different. When a retailer or a buyer buys something, if they're going to buy 6 items of the same soap, they want them to all look the same. If there's a variation, that could sometimes lead to not being successful. So I would say before you take that step out into wholesale, make sure your product is as perfect as it could be, that you are so proud of it and confident that it will look great on a store shelf. Selling something online is completely different than having something on a shelf next to a bunch of other brands. You have to make sure you're calling out the benefits of your product, that you have the proper ingredient labels for soap and things like that. You can't have anything that's not really approved by the FDA on there. There's always ever-changing things. So you are now putting somebody else is now trusting you with their business. You have to just make sure that you cross all your T's and dot all your I's and that your product is as professional as could be. Which sounds daunting, but if you don't do that, the repercussions could be worse. If you're not, if you're selling open soap and you don't have packaging yet, figure out the packaging before you go on wholesale, because that's going to be the first question that a retailer is going to ask. They're probably not going to put an unwrapped bar of soap out.
Yeah, absolutely. And also with that, it comes another question that I honestly, I don't remember, but I heard that not all your products are going to be a good fit for wholesale. Probably some are like the profit is not the one that you will want if you offer them as wholesale, or it takes too much of your time to make. How did you manage that? Or do you offer all your products for wholesale?
So in my new brand, now that I have someone helping me manufacture, I'm offering everything to my wholesalers. But before that, I wasn't offering my body butters because I was making them myself. And I just knew that I couldn't make it work from keeping up with the demand. It was just such a time constraint. It's a lot more intense of a process than cold process soap making. So I never wholesaled my body butters before, simply because of that. And I think that's okay. I think that having some special things just for you is also a reason for someone who may have discovered your product in a boutique. They might be shopping, find you there, and then go look you up on social media or look up your website and be really excited to find that you have exclusive products that they couldn't find in store. And then you just got yourself a new customer on your website as well. So I think that it's actually good for you to have some different things than what you might wholesale. And especially if the profit doesn't work. And I'm saying, like, if you're not making any money or you're losing money, do not wholesale that item. Maybe figure out how you could do it better, or it's simply an exclusive on your website, which again is a great reason for someone who's new to your brand to maybe shop directly with you.
Yeah, and I think it's a good and bad thing for you. Probably you want to sell all your products for wholesale, but maybe that's something that will make your brand unique, and also to engage with more customers. Maybe they're going to reach out to you directly and you can build a relationship with them, things that you cannot do with wholesale, right? So then what are the pros and cons of wholesale for you?
Well, the pros for me are I really, again, think it's important to diversify your revenue streams and your different sales channels. And just solely being online or solely being in brick and mortar, that's a very dangerous place to play. So I think it's a very big positive to diversify. I will say, I think sometimes the con is you have a little bit less control over your product placement, how it's you don't have control over how it's displayed in stores, what it's displayed with. You don't have as much control over like a markdown. So I had one time a store mark down some of the seasonal soaps and a customer bought it for like $10 or $15. And then I got a scathing email as to why is it $22 on your website? I bought it for 10. And I don't have control over people marking down things. I can say, please don't mark it down past a certain point, but I can't legally tell someone what to retail my products for. They have every right to put at whatever price they want on it. If they want to sell it below the cost, and that's I don't know why they would, but they legally they can do that. So I think that is the one thing you have to just be willing to understand. If that happens with a retailer, though, you can obviously end the relationship if you don't feel like it's beneficial for you down the road. So there are things you can do to make sure that that doesn't happen as much, but you lose a lot of control when you do open to retailers, which again is why I think it's so important to meet your retailers face to face, know who they are, talk to them regularly, ask for their feedback, because you're going to have less of that friction if you actually know the person on the other end. I don't know if we're going to get down to it, but I know there's a lot of wholesale platforms like Fair. I don't even know if Abound is around anymore, but there's a lot of platforms that are very, very transactional and they have their own pros and cons. But the biggest con to me for that is that you don't have that ability to really build a relationship with someone. I think in any kind of business situation, that relationship is so much more important sometimes than even your profit, because if you have somebody who wants to come back to you time and time again, wants to buy from you, wants to see you succeed and vice versa, that's just such a great formula for growth, for long-term growth. You have to look at the whole entire picture and what your 5-10 year plan is. And it is having a relationship with someone who's mutually beneficial to your business, not just this one-time quick sale. That's not good for anybody.
And I think that those relationships make your business stronger and make it like a solid brand. They are getting to know that you're partnering with such a great companies. So that also brings trust to your business, which is also amazing, and things that we won't be getting if we don't start doing that type of relationships for our business.
Yeah. And now if you wholesale, your retailers are selling your product for you. So as they don't work for you, but they are kind of your salespeople now. They're the ones talking to the customers, telling them about your product, trying to sell the product directly to them. So they're kind of the face of your product because they trust it and now they're selling it. So you really do want to know who's behind that brand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an experience with that because I had the chance to partner with a company. It was like a home decor store. And I had the chance to go to the stores and train their employees. So that was like a very good thing that they allow me to do. Probably not everyone is going to do that for you, but I had the chance to go with them and talk to them about the product and let them know how it was made, the natural fibers that we use, and all of that background and story so they can understand what the brand is about. It brings so much like a better connection for them with that and the brand, so they can really understand how to sell it, not just saying, yeah, here is a beautiful basket or soap and it smells so good and try it out, right? Instead of that, they're going to talk about your story, and that's like a more important thing to share with the customers, right? So I think if you can do that, I honestly encourage you to do it and take the time to visit the stores. And also, even if you already have a contract with a partner, just go and visit the stores and ask them, how are the sales going? Do you need something from me? I think those type of things really encourage them to keep purchasing something from you.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
So, okay, next, what challenges of doing wholesale are involved when you're a 100% handmade product?
So for me, I think I already mentioned just keeping up with demand was my biggest challenge, which is a great problem to have, but it's also very hard because you want to make sure your product is consistent. You don't want to drop your quality just because you're trying to make a lot more. And sometimes when we're rushing or trying to fill things quickly, quality can be the one thing that sort of falls through the cracks. And so that was really important for me, which is why I sort of stopped to reevaluate my business to make sure that I was never putting a product out there that was poor quality. So fix that myself. But I think that is probably the biggest thing. And then I would say variations. I mean, it depends on what you're making. I know I keep referring to my industry because it's what I know in soap and things like that. But I mean, there could be different artists or anything really, jewelry, any kind of textiles that there could be slight variations. I would just make sure that when you're selling your products to someone in a retail environment, that they know that if they're going to reorder something, it might be a little bit of a different color. Or if there are variations, just you're better off to share that information and be totally upfront with them. Because if they buy something one time, a buyer is going to expect that the second time they buy it, it is 100% identical. And if there is a variation, you have to make sure that you're just telling them that. Sometimes they'll be okay with it as long as you've told them. But if you ship them an item and it looks totally different, and especially if they have the two next to each other on the shelf, if they got a reorder and they put it out and they're completely different labels or something like that, that just doesn't bode well for you. It just doesn't look as professional.
Yeah. And what about like you mentioned, keep up with the demand? How did you organize yourself to have enough inventory and stick to the delivery dates?
Um, so I basically was sold out of a lot of stuff for a long time, which was that was sort of the wake up call for me when I was sold out of product. And I was pulling all my wholesale inventory from, I basically had one inventory pool. So I didn't have separate inventory for my own business and then wholesale. I had it all in one. So I was basically sold out of a lot of stuff. And that was when I basically realized that I needed to do something about this, because I had my own customers that I had worked really hard to get going to my website, not able to purchase product. So I kind of slowed down my wholesale business. I was on Fair. I still am on Fair, but I kind of shut that down and I put it on pause because I just couldn't keep up with the demand. So again, you control it. You can control everything, but that sucks because I stopped a sales channel and people then, email me, okay, well, you had this 2 weeks ago. Where is it? When is it coming? And everyone's in a sense of urgency for everything in the world we live in now. So people just, they don't understand sometimes when you are a handmade business and things take a little bit longer. But again, you control it all yourself. So
yeah, I think that's the good thing about being the owner. Like you control it and you can choose what's good and what's not good for your business, right? And I think those steps that you're doing right now are not easy, but for the future are going to be so worth it. So, no, so I think the last question is, I know that a lot of people talk about the wholesale pitch. Can you tell us about if you did it and why is it important for the businesses to have a wholesale pitch?
You mean like a website or an Instagram page?
I think overall, like to have it in your website, socials, or just by sending it on an email or something like that.
Okay. Again, I think it's the relationship piece. There are a lot of things that I can share with my retailers ahead. Like I'm sharing all the behind the scenes. You probably see behind me, I've been taking photos for the last 2 days. I'm sharing all of that with my wholesale customers. And you do not see any of that anywhere on the internet because it's a private wholesale Instagram page. And it sort of gives them that sneak peek. It gets them excited and they're placing their orders now because my product will be here in a couple weeks. It is just another way to communicate and keep up with them in a very special way that is specific to wholesale. And retailers are really, really busy. They're not going to always reach out to you and see what's new and what's going on. But if you're on social media, I find a lot of them are looking at my stories and my posts on my wholesale specific. And it's a private page. I monitor anybody that comes through. So it's super limited. And not every wholesaler follows it because some people don't want to. And that's totally fine. It's not my only way to communicate with them. But having a wholesale specific Instagram or email list or something like that, I think is a game changer for me. And that's only something I've done recently this year, simply because I wanted to treat my retailers differently than my regular customers.
Yeah, and I think they really value that. If you make them feel important, they're definitely going to be willing to be working with you. Even if they're super busy handling a lot of things, they're going to remember you because you're paying attention to them as well.
Yes, and it's a great way to ask for their feedback. So down the road, I already have sort of polled them. Instagram has so many great tools where you can ask questions and poll. And a lot of people send like a survey, right? If you're like, oh, I'll just email all my wholesalers a survey. Coming from a previous buyer, I do not have time to fill out your survey. So I think most retailers are 10 times busier than we even realize. I think we think they're just sort of in their store and it's what we see on Instagram, but it is a lot of work to run a retail store. And they don't have time to fill out our little surveys or reply to emails. But if they're scrolling Instagram or they're looking at your story and you ask them, okay, guys, what pattern do you like for spring, A or B? And they can just quickly vote. And then you get a lot of great information from them. And it helps you make better business decisions down the road too.
I love that. I honestly never thought about opening like a whole Instagram account just for them. I think that's amazing. A really good thing to do.
Yeah, and it's free. So
yeah,
it's a great way. Even better.
Okay, so I think any last advice for our handmade business community that you want to share?
I would just say, do it. Just try it. You may not like doing wholesale and maybe you realize it's not for you, but I just hear so many people and I get a lot of comments on my YouTube whenever I talk about wholesale. Oh, my profit. Oh, I'm giving away 50%. And there's just so much negativity around it. And I just wish people would try it and that they would understand. And again, you don't need to be selling to Target. You don't have to be selling to these huge retailers that would swallow up thousands of units in a heartbeat. Even if you are within, 5-10 miles of where you are and you get a handful of stores, that's great. You're still doing wholesale. You're still building your business and you're building a little community around you. That's the other thing is I can talk business with a lot of my retailers in my area. Oh, how are your sales? How are you doing? How's this? How's that? It's just, even if you have 5 people, it makes your job more enjoyable when you have a little network to chat with.
I love that. Okay, so thank you so much. And the last thing, I would love for you to share how people can find you and your business so they can follow you and follow your journey with Solette.
Yeah, so it's Solette, Solette, beauty. That's the Instagram or my website. And I have my own personal Instagram, caitlinblue, as well as my YouTube channel where I do a ton of behind the scenes stuff. I do a lot of vlogs, but I also have quite a few videos up there, how to do market displays, wholesale pricing, a lot of different videos that you guys can go check out too. So caitlinblue, spelled like the color. Super easy.
Thank you so much, Caitlin.
Yeah, it was so good to chat with you.
No, thank you. So everyone, there you have my interview with Caitlin. Go check out Caitlin and her business in the link of the show notes. I hope you enjoy our very first episode. Don't forget to subscribe, give us a follow, and if you like the episode, share it with your friends. Thank you for being here, and until next time. And if you're interested in learning more about Inventora and how can we help you with your wholesale orders, don't forget to visit inventora.com.